Recording.
Well, welcome to the January 21st, 2025 session of TAPR-HamSCI technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week uh, I did a little adjustment work. The snow kind of melted away enough that I could do uh, checking some cables and things like that. And otherwise, it's just keeping driveways and things cleared off of snow. And so that's about it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dave. We're getting ready for classes to start here at the University of Scranton again. They're going to start this Wednesday. I'm teaching communication systems. I'm also working on my schedule to get all of the research meetings I have with my students going. And I've got a few things in process there. One is I now have a Monday afternoon meeting with, we're going to have two undergraduate students who are physics majors um, that are juniors. They have to do a undergraduate bachelor's thesis that isn't going to be done this May, but next May for their physics degree. And so they're going to be working on various aspects of the personal space weather station. I think one student's probably going to be assigned to helping to do the deployment of the personal space weather stations for the DAISY 2 grant. So she'll probably help with the deployment over the summer and that sort of thing. And then she'll also have to do some physics analysis for her bachelor's thesis. And the other student is going to be assigned to working with the Antarctic project, where we're also going to be working on getting a personal space weather station receiver down in McMurdo. Um, so they're going to be at that meeting. I also have another professor. Her name is Dr. Christine Zagsiski. She decided that she wants to join our team too, so she's going to be at that meeting, and Majid's going to be at that meeting, and probably Hillman and another local volunteer. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to have a nice team at Scranton working on these sorts of things. Then that's the 2:30 p.m. meeting at Scranton. Then we're also going to have a 4 p.m. meeting where we're working with the Frankfurt Radio Club. In the Frankfurt Radio Club, we have a project to try to develop some sort of a visualization to help DXers and contesters using the personal space weather station data. So that meeting's going to start 4 p.m. on Mondays with our student Owen Rosansky, who just got his ham license over the break. Um, that one, we're actually going to start not by doing personal space weather stations so much, but we're going to be working with the FRC to get W3USR on the air for contests. So I really want our student, before he starts doing a visualization of data to help contesters, I want him to actually know what a contest is and have some idea on how to operate. So we're going to be working on that. Then we have this meeting on, of course, Monday nights. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that the Thursday um, morning meeting that has been the Grape 2 meeting for the past couple years, we are rebranding it to the HamSCI Personal Space Weather Station Operations Telecon. So I think Christina Collins is going to start coming to that again. She's the Chief Operations Scientist for the DAISY 2 grant. I know Bill Engelke and Gary are there. So we're going to use that time to make a lot of like operational decisions and have those sorts of discussions. So I know a lot of the technical discussions for like the whisper demon things and the magnetometer and the antenna group are going to happen here, but and a lot of operational discussions will happen on Thursday morning. So there's a lot going on. Back to net.
Okay. Well, next on the list is Scott Newell in 5TNL. Go ahead, Scott.
Evening, gentlemen. Not much progress this week. John Ackerman gave me remote access to an AirSpy Radio D box, so I did a real quick and dirty hack to see if we could get K9Q Web sort of working. I did push a new web version that I hope will clarify the noise density numbers on the web page, which do come straight from Phil's status streams. I think there was some confusion in Rob's Wednesday call over the spectrum versus the audio stream numbers. So if I've misused that spectrum noise density number, please let me know and I can remove it. I did manage to get a Debian SOX built with Opus support, but it doesn't want to install properly. And I don't see Phil in the chat, so I'll leave off the PCM record stuff. And that's it for me. Back to Nick.
Okay. Well, he may show up, he may not. It's the way these things go. Next on the list is Bill Engelkey. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening to you. Good evening to the net. Did a little bit of contesting this weekend on the ARRL VHF contest, but conditions were quite poor. I think I did about the same. I was on maybe 20 hours out of the 30 and worked maybe half the number of queues as last year, doing the same things. So it's just conditions. I think I have the impression that the high level of solar activity may actually be bad for VHF conditions, but who knows? Also had some good success today with getting it the first time where the process of taking one of our Grape One legacy files and going all the way from the trigger all the way to a completed upload that runs as an observation on the website ran through and had to solve an awful lot of issues, as you always do, and even managed to fix a security problem with the server that's been there for a while, which prevented us from being able to install new software. And I finally noticed, hey, the Computer Associates encryption file is missing from where it's supposed to be. And thank goodness there was a backup copy, which I put into the encryption file. I mean, in the right directory. And then all of a sudden, pip started working, yum started working, all those things that I hadn't been able to use for about the last 6 months. I have no idea what caused that. Anyway, that's the news from chilly for us, Northport, Alabama. Back to Nick.
Okay. Well, we did talk to Clint. I don't know if he's around, but he's out camping in Arizona and he's remoting in. And I'm sure he'll be back in a little bit. It was kind of windy and he was tying things down. So, oh, there he is. Clint, any comments?
No, just chilling out here, literally. I'm turning off my output video to save
Okay.
bandwidth because it's a Starlink, so it costs you money more you run stuff. But
Yes.
but anyway, nothing new to report. Just saying hi, and it's dark and
Well,
there's not much else to do right now, right?
well, thanks for checking in.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Next on the list, Dave KD0EAG is here, but he's got a bit of a cold. I don't know if he wants to say anything or not, but he is here. Then we have Dave W6OQ. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I'm just here seeing what I can learn.
Okay. And then we have David McGaw in one HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, from balmy 2 degrees here in New Hampshire and going down. But as I said earlier, we used to get minus 20, not plus 2, but whatever. It's cold, and I have the wood stove going. And my big thing these days is transition, moving lab from one lab to another and trying to, parsing out a lab that I've been in nearly 18 years is no small task. but it's happening, and trying to pull all the pieces out that to keep the work going. I'm studying rheometers at this point, hoping eventually to target them to the personal space weather station. So back to net.
I have a quick question for you. Uh, is your university email address still good and valid?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm switching positions, but that's going through.
Okay,
So yes, we'll be good.
thank you.
Yep.
Next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening to the group, Dave and everyone. Just a kind of a food for thought item. With the HamSCI workshop coming up in a couple of months, I wonder if there's any interest on the part of the HamSCI antenna investigation team to give a talk during the workshop. And I say that for two reasons. One, I think that would be an interesting presentation since we usually have a block of talks regarding the personal space weather station. And two, I may well be talking about how we're going to be siting the new stations, how we're going to locate them, how we're going to find them, how we're going to locate them, and so on and so forth. And if somebody's there to cover the antenna aspects of it, then I don't have to do it. And I'm sure they would do a much better job than I would too. So just food for thought, and we can get into that in the discussions later. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. And then next on the list is Jay Schwartz, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay. Howdy. Nothing really new to report from Detroit since the last weekend, other than I tested my generator this morning. It worked just fine. And my furnace got its annual preventative maintenance checkup about 3 months ago. So it's working just fine. So other than that, nothing new here from this end. So hope everybody is staying warm, staying safe. 7-3 to all, and I'll just be reading the mail here. Back to Nick.
Very good. It's nice to have a furnace when the weather turns cold. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. Staying busy here. The Grape 1 and the Grape 1 DRF are both cranking out data. There's not been a huge amount of solar activity in the last few days. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I've actually been somewhat busy. I am still currently working on the summary for the Frontiers paper. I have about a week and a half left before I have to submit it. Also, there has been quite a bit of whistlers, not only this week, but last week, received or observed at the VLF receiver. And that is definitely due to the solar activity. But it's obviously much warmer weather in the southern hemisphere, so there's much more thunderstorm activity going on, and with the increase in since we do get weak geomagnetic storming. We had some this week. Last week we've been getting very weak storming. But that has been advantageous, at least for this VLF receiver, in making conditions right for whistlers. So there was quite a lot of whistlers. So I was very, very happy about that. Other than that, I am thinking of the outline for my HamSCI workshop talk. Nathaniel, I didn't ask you formally, but if possible, I would like to do a talk at the HamSCI workshop regarding the VLF systems that will be covered in the new grant this year. I'm working on the outline, trying to include not only that, but obviously the observations and other interesting things that have been going on. And lastly, Gary, I apologize. I still owe you that article on SAQ, and I will get that to you as soon as possible. And I do apologize for being late. I was kind of wrapped up in a lot of non VLF related matters. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay. Next on the list, we have Phil, K9Q. Go ahead, Phil.
Okay, guys. This is another one of these short evenings. I'll be in and out here quickly. A lot more work on KNIQ radio in the last week. Rob can probably tell you about a lot of it since we've been collaborating on it closely. It's being now used in another, project environment that is the RadioSound automatic receivers software package maintained by VK5QI. Mark Jessup, who's actually visiting in the U.S. We had lunch together last week while he's here. So it's another application for KNIQ radio. It's just in hilltops listening to the 400 megahertz band, finding radio signs and putting the modulators on them. And now they can do it for as many channels as they want. So let's see. Other than that, I guess my Git push logs probably tell the story better than I could right now since I don't have a whole lot of time. Back to you, Dave.
Yes, I've been following the changes on your GitHub logs, so it's been quite an active week or so. Rob is out eating dinner right now, and he will be back in a little bit, but he's stepped in here. We did discuss, he believes that the one unit that the Germans were taking is in Antarctica now, and I forget his name. The fellow's flying down there. He's in South Africa right now, and will be down in Antarctica soon. And let's see, and he will be setting up that radio. And then what else did Rob tell me? He's been working on things with Phil, and I guess, Scott, did you have a question for Phil? Scott?
And nothing important.
Okay. And I think that was everybody that mentioned wanting to talk to Phil. So I think we've called on everybody. So we're open for general discussion.
It sounds good. Where do we start? Let's see. Rob is still out right now, right?
Rob is eating dinner with his family.
Okay. I
But
got an
he
email.
did listen he said he would sort of listen, but he's in the middle of cooking and eating and all that stuff.
Yeah. I got an email from Steve Stroh today, and he writes, I was interested to read about the personal space weather station. This seems just the latest way for amateur radio and those interested in radio experimentation who aren't amateur radiographers to contribute to radio-related citizen science. There would seem to be an opening to begin help integrating such activities of individuals to contribute, including whisper transmitting and receiving, VHF, UHF beacons, general HF, VHF, UHF web receivers such as TBSDRs, weather data transmitted by an individual APRS station, or just injected into APRS-IS, SatNav's receiving data, and personal sky cameras. So he writes, I'm not suggesting that these should be integrated into a HamSCI or that HamSCI should be the organizer or integrator of these activities, but there would seem to be some value in trying to convene such cooperation between these various efforts, all of which kind revolve around amateur radio observations being uploaded to the internet to derive some scientific value of the observations. If it were easier to build such stations, perhaps as a maker, hacker, curious young techie, that might spark some interest. Also, perhaps maker spaces and STEM centers might be interested in it. Steve Stroh, N8GNJ. And so I agree with all of this, but I guess two thoughts come to mind. One is, in some ways, I think we're doing all of this already, and that's kind of our mission.
Yes.
And that makes me wonder if he's sending me this email, if our messaging isn't getting out properly, or if it means that we aren't we're not, I don't know, integrating things the way he wants to, or if it means that he just doesn't really understand what we're doing. So I haven't decided how to respond to this email yet. I was wondering what other people thought about it.
Well, Steve mentioned a couple of things that are outside of our scope, like the APRS stuff and terrestrial weather data.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had a pretty big basket there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, Steve is particularly interested in VHF, UHF kinds of transmissions. His newsletter has quite a lot of information about that. And at this point in the stuff we're logging, we haven't been focusing on VHF and UHF.
No. We've been very much HF focused. And now with Jonathan, we're doing some more VLF.
Yeah. And then the other issue is the logging of data. And I'm sure Bill's would be really happy to take on new stuff. So he's got his hands full with what he's already doing.
Yes. And I mean, we certainly have, as the grant is written, we have a certain like mandate and kind of work package that we're going to be doing. So yeah.
The
Well,
other question.
The question I've got, Steve says there, he suggests that, obviously we don't try to take this stuff on or absorb it, obviously, but that there should be some sort of cooperation between the efforts. And I guess I'd have to think about what that means. Personal sky cameras, for instance, I don't know how
I
that.
think the thing that I'm not sure that I understand is some of the stuff we're already doing. Like we're already doing this. And and we're already we're kind of doing that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if he just doesn't understand that we're doing that, or if, I'm not sure what he's looking for.
I do like his taglines. Radios are for computers with antennas.
Yes. I might sleep on this email for a little bit and think about how to respond and try and dialogue with him a little to understand more of where he's coming from, and maybe he can, and then I can try to let him know what we're doing as well, so that, because we do have ways for people to come in and like they can be part of this telecon, they can be part of the Thursday telecons, and we have we have the material on the internet on the HamSCI website too that explains how to build the systems as well. And I know Rob and Bill's software is all fully open source, so there's a lot of a lot of openness if people just know where to look.
Well, I have had comments from Steve that the learning curve is kind of steep.
I agree with that.
And Steve has been around TAPR for a very long time, longer than I have. And so he's kind of brought in a lot of his interests are in the traditional VHF, UHF type data sending. And so that's where he comes from. He was fairly outspoken during this recent changes in TAPR. And so, and he's been a long time TAPR member. So, but I don't know. There are things that he doesn't know that we do and is surprised when we tell him that we're doing those. So I'm not quite sure where he's coming from.
Well, with regard to looking at data on VHF and UHF, today, a lot of the traffic is people running FT8 and MSK 144.
Right.
And unless you turn that off, WSJTX reports all that to PSK Reporter, which we get. And I played around with making little maps of sporadic E using that. You plot the center points of the contacts on a map and you see little globs of E sporadic C. So you can do some stuff with that already with the data we're getting on the well, it's public data now. It's all in Madrigal.
Yes.
And yeah, it's fun to look at that stuff.
Well, it's like one thing is all of these things take people with some knowledge of what to do with it to sit down and work on the data. And there's only so many people available to do that.
And we're doing things to build up on that. I have there's some things that we're doing at Scranton, which if they go well, will help build on the number of people that can work on the data with these things. I think Gary has looking at the New York Times here. If you go to the HamSCI website, we have this very nice page here too. And I know Gary's done a lot of work on trying to make this more usable and more understandable, but I guess it still does have a steep learning curve. But I think
I would think the best thing for us to do is reach out to Steve. He publishes a newsletter, which I get, that's a email newsletter. And he does a nice job writing it. He writes very nice articles about each of the topics that they pick up. And I think maybe that's the thing to do is just reach out to him and see where we can work together.
yeah, I think that's probably a good way to do it. And yeah, maybe
He's
if
also, I have one other thing. He's also very big on the ham radio historical document site. He's very big in that and has made closer ties between his work and that work.
yeah. Huh. Yeah, so maybe I'll definitely dialogue with him, and then if I can't get everything discussed through email, maybe I'll invite him to a Zoom and we can talk about things more too.
Yeah.
And just kind of get some feedback from there. So yeah.
It's just that you're building tools that are designed to match your grant proposals.
Right.
And that's what you're focusing on.
Right. That's also one of the reasons why I was pretty excited about the FRC coming to me and saying they wanted to sponsor a project, because then we could make it really more like, all right, this is really going to ham radio, and have a little less of an NSF and NASA focus.
Yeah.
So yeah, but and I think we have. I've been talking to Christina and Jesse Alexander. I think we have some other ideas of things we might be able to do to kind of increase the usability or the education, the make the on ramp a little bit easier, or have a better on ramp might be the way to put it. But those ideas are still very much only ideas in progress, and are not been I think it'll be a while till we can actually make those reality, because there's just so much stuff to do. But we'll see. Yeah.
I've enjoyed where we are right now because it's the kind of combination of science and ham radio that I find very interesting. But I also understand that not everybody finds it the same way.
Well, I think it's starting to get a little bit more accessible, since, we now do have on the website like documentation where you can say, okay, you buy these things, you put this software in. You know, Rob and Phil have done an amazing job coming up with, software that makes the core system run. And then between Rob's Whisper Demon system and Bill Engelke's, system, the UA system, we actually have something we can say, all right, today, yes, you can go buy this thing, you can go install it.
Right.
We have documentation that says how it works. So I think that is really exciting. And I think it is, I think it's at a point where people can start doing stuff with it.
Yes.
And like that's the other thing with this FRC project. We're at the point where I can say to the FRC, all right, we actually have a system, a platform where I think I can put a rather intelligent, first year student on this project and potentially have
Right.
them do something interesting. And I don't think
Yes.
that was the case, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes. Well, and as with all learning curves, people move through those learning curves at different rates. And we know that from teaching students.
Right.
And it's you kind of have to figure out where people are and then start building to what they need to know to work with these systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a fantastic set of tools that we have. It's
I agree. I'm
I haven't
super.
run across anything quite this advanced in a public participation group anywhere.
I'm very, very, very excited about all of this.
Yeah.
I think you can take a look at how the grape system's advanced. I mean, the grape one FL Digi, there's roughly 50 of them out there, and those were all essentially do-it-yourself kits, and 50 people were successful at it and are still uploading today. The grape one DRF was a little more turnkey, probably quite a bit more. The grape 2 is a little bit more turnkey yet, and the Whisper Damon grape may get there. It takes a little bit of more programming skill I know than I've got probably to get it running, but we'll get there too. So, so I think we're on the right trajectory, I guess is what I'd say. But on the other hand too, is that the most rewarding results often come from the most sweat and tears too. So it's there's a trade-off.
A question, Gary. I've got a friend in Southwest Utah, KF7 YRS, and he's questioning the usefulness of the data. He's having to reset the thing occasionally. He's got a great DRF, but is his data actually being used or going to be used? In other words, he's thinking about taking the system down.
I've not heard anything that would make me think that it's not going to be used. I mean, that's why we're collecting it, storing it, and Bill and others, moving it to the magical database. The other thing I found interesting as a citizen scientist is that as I've perused some of these papers and other things the last couple of years, sometimes people will go back to papers or excuse me, data that's 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old to work on their conclusions and stuff. So that stuff has, I guess
Yeah.
I'd say, value well out into the future. So hopefully Lee and others keep that stuff running.
Okay,
I think
well,
that,
go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, Gary answers it very well. I think, this is maybe something we want to make a note of. Christina Collins is going to be the chief operations scientist of the Personal Space Weather Station as part of this new grant. And, one of the things that she's going to have to do is, keep track of, work with Bill Engelke, develop tools to make sure he can evaluate the quality of the data and give feedback to users and things like that. But I think along with that, we do need to somehow work on our messaging or our explanations of how these databases actually are useful because yeah, we go back. I mean, I'm working on a super darn project right now, and I'm looking for traveling atmospheric disturbances in the southern hemisphere. And there's like 15 super darn radars in Antarctica and in the southern hemisphere. And I told my student, please write me a code that goes through all of the data for the past 10 years from all 15 radars to look for the thing we're looking for. And so we have a code, and after we've run that code looking at all the data, and we found one radar out of that basically met the criteria of the thing we're looking for. But that thing is very valuable. So and that's just the particular thing I'm looking for. There's a lot of other super darn scientists who are using the super darn radars for other things, and they will go back and look, similarly do kinds of studies where they might look for solar flare effects, or they might look for geomagnetic storms, or so. So Gary is absolutely right. Like this, if people can keep these things running and create a long-term database, that is incredibly valuable. And of course, the problem with that is people who are just running these on a daily basis and don't understand how the analysis part of things work and the publication process works, they're not necessarily going to see the results of this right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
I can also,
set on to
yeah,
Lee. And a problem is his does not appear to be as reliable as mine does, except for
yeah,
that 1 week period. Mine's been pretty good. Well, also the adapter for the hard disk died. I had to replace that. But other than that, the thing just keeps cranking along day after day after day.
yeah.
Nathaniel,
Last
is
week
that something that might be appropriate for the workshop to talk
what's that?
about how this can be used long term?
Yeah.
It certainly can be. I mean, I think Gary just had an article in QST where he talked a little bit about the science process.
Right.
We can try to get that messaging out some more.
Yeah, it probably is helpful for people to understand the long term nature of
Yeah.
scientific research.
I mean, another thing I can tell you is just last week, um, Shivaji Chakraborty came to me, and Shivaji's he's now a research professor at Embry-Riddle. But he was a graduate student with me. He's very good at doing like theory and applying theory to doing modeling. And he he just showed me last week how he came up with theoretical Doppler shift curves that look like they match the eclipse data from the grapes very well. Um, he just sent me the CSV files with those theoretical curves, that I have to now overlay onto my plot. And I have not had a chance to do that yet. I was hoping to do that this weekend, but just couldn't get to it. But once we have that, like, then once we get that working on one plot, then we're gonna go work on another plot. If it's okay, I think I need to go because our baby is being a little fussier than usual tonight. So I'm being asked if I can
Yes.
go give some help. So I'm gonna say 73 for tonight, but I will see all of you throughout the week. And yes, the data is absolutely being used, and I can promise you that.
Yep.
I
All right,
think
everyone.
the time to do the science objectives for Daisy 2 probably is at hand.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
some science objectives.
Yeah.
So that
And
would.
yeah. All right, everyone. I will leave one of you in charge, and I guess leave Dave
Well,
in charge. I will
yep.
see you soon. Thanks.
73.
Okay. And so it's a very interesting project in that it's the conjunction of science and ham radio and then this whole data storage problem. And it's hard if you haven't been working in those areas, it's hard to understand how it all fits together.
Well, I think Joe raised a good point too, is that, we put various systems out there and people are running them and we're very thankful for that. But we kind of forget about them after a while. We kind of assume they're just going happily along. And we probably owe them some communications and some explanation and stuff too, Joe. So I will think about how to do that. I appreciate your input. I think that's very valuable.
Well, did we send everybody who is participating, in other words, running a system, including all of the Grape One legacy systems, they ought to get an email with their own copy of that glossy newsletter
Yeah.
was recently put together.
Not a bad idea too.
I have a magnetometer that's been running since 2021. One of the first prototypes, and it's still running. I actually run 2 magnetometers in my yard. And the one thing I wanted to ask Bill is the data that I'm uploading is in zip format, which doesn't play well with your plotting algorithms. Should I not zip that?
No, I wouldn't say that. There's a couple of things there. It's easy enough when we're putting together analysis packages, it's easy enough to recognize if a file is zipped and then unzip it into a temp area.
Okay.
Plus, also, a lot of times we use a Python library called pandas. And if you put it in a zip, it automatically figures out. You
Yes.
don't even have to do anything. You just read it in. And if it's a zip file, it'll unzip it
Okay.
transparently. So I don't think it's a problem. In fact,
Okay.
all of these files from the Grape One legacy systems are CSV. And I realized we cut space down a lot without compromising any processing because it's lossless. And,
Yes.
everything can happen automatically. So.
I did get some nice burst data over the end of December here at my QTH.
I've been talking to Norman up near Montreal, and our during events, our 2 graphs differ very significantly. Of course, he's quite a bit further north and east of me, but wow, I was really amazed at how different they can be from 2 different locations.
What's been amazing to me is the fact the amount of motion in the ionosphere. We all talk about it, but there's this layer, and you think of a layer as just sitting up there, but it's in constant motion. It reminds me of is a friend of mine the husband of a niece who lives up in Coleman. Anyway, he used to have an office at the top on one of the top floors of one of the tallest buildings in Birmingham, and they had a conference room with a hanging chandelier. And
Oh,
when you sat around that conference table, that chandelier never stopped moving because of tiny motions of the building
Yeah.
due to wind and whatever. And that chandelier was shaking and wobbling back and forth. And yeah, I mean, so there's motion sometimes in things that you don't realize it until you happen to come across something that makes use of it. So
yeah, an email with a nice glossy picture would go a long way toward encouraging people like Lee.
well, I don't know how, if we've got enough copies of that glossy thing and enough postage, we've got the address for most of them. We could send them a gloss, we could send it to them in an envelope and with a little thank you note saying, thank you for your continuing participation in our project. Here is our latest newsletter about this. And, even people who have retired stations, I mean, that
Right.
might motivate some people to come back. And just for the
Well,
cost of
their data is still
No.
in there,
a
even if
dollar
they're,
a piece for the mailing, whatever. Yeah.
Another opportunity is, since you're making such good progress on plotting and graphing that stuff, Bill, you're right. I mean, the hard copy newsletter is one thing, and I'm thinking a few months ahead, 3 months or 4 months ahead, they'll be able to go to your U of A site and see some of their data, that the stuff that's hidden on the WWV server now, nobody knows can't do anything with it, but that'd be pretty cool, I think.
And we are going to need to get some volunteer help. We talked about this a little last week at the Case Western Reserve Thursday morning meeting to get an uploader put on all of the legacy systems so that they can start doing a regular upload to the UA server. And that is something I'm not going to be able to do alone because there's like over 100 of them. I don't know how many are actually active, but anyway, so that's something to look forward to, is getting all those systems to where they're uploading to the central system. They're uploading, I think a lot of them are uploading now to the WWV ARC site. And that is kind of I don't know, that's a little bit risky in a way, because I understand that the guy who is the system admin is extremely ill, and so he might even be around for a while, anymore. So
yep.
Well, mine is still running the original code from roughly 2020 or 21. And wherever it's going is, I've lost track of that.
Yeah, that's going to WWV. Yeah, I mean, what little I know about Linux too, the tricky thing is once you start fiddling around with that stuff, and you got packages and updates and all those kinds of things that come into play, that it's not so easy as changing a couple of lines in a batch file somewhere. But there's people that know how to do that sort of thing, and that's who we've got to find and engage. So
Yeah.
Well, I'll pass this on to Lee and try to encourage him to keep going. The problem is he's underwater with too many projects. They've set up a big mesh UHF and microwave system in Southwest Utah between among all of the different healthcare facilities in that corner of the state. And he's been putting in anywhere from 40 to 80 hours a week working on that. So he's been kind of busy. He even sent me some of the stuff that's been donated to them so I can do a demonstration for our club here. Pretty good guy.
that's for emergency communications purposes. Is that the idea, Joe?
Yes. Yeah. Hey, what they're doing, they've got mesh between hospitals and EOCs and shelters and things like that. And then the hospital facilities, which are outside of regular mesh range, which is probably more than about 20 miles or so, or maybe even less than that. They're using Starlink to connect those. And we had a request from our hospital here. They own the facility down in Verde Valley, about 50 miles south of here, and they wanted backup communications. Gosh, the best way to get backup communications is a couple of Starlinks. And I was over at Best Buy this afternoon picking up an iPad, and they had a big stack of Starlink boxes sitting by the front door, $300 and some plus the 120 a month. That's going to replace ARES, I suspect.
A lot of that depends on the CEO of Starlink, how
Yes.
stable he is, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, interesting person. And he's helping run the government.
A lot of people are not that enamored with the idea of paying for, I mean, especially 120 a month. That I can justify. I'm using it. I can kind of justify it because I use it for all my internet and all our television and uploading and everything. But you know what? I remember our local radio club. There was a lot of hand wringing, and it just was resolved by not doing it. We have a bunch of D-Star equipment that's been on the air, one of the first D-Star repeater systems in the country, and it was so expensive to hook it up to internet that we just didn't do it. So you can't see the status of it. You can't see the list of people who have been on the machine like you can with most D-Star repeaters because it's simply too expensive for the club. It was going to be like $75 a month or something for a club that's got maybe 20 members. I mean, come on. So, you know, all the dues we collect wouldn't cover the annual fee for the repeater on the web. So, and I mean, if it's 120 a month, the problem's even more magnified.
People got together and set up a D-Star on White Tanks Mountain west of Phoenix, and it was an expensive undertaking. And I've been told that the D-Star is hardly used. Kind of a sad situation.
It's been the traffic on it has dwindled down quite dramatically. I put a D-Star rig in my car, and I drove from here in Alabama to San Francisco, trying to work everything along the way, and I never made a single D-Star contact. Not one.
Yeah, here in the New Hampshire, Vermont, we haven't really seen much digital until DMR came in. But there's a lot of interest in DMR.
Similar here.
One project I've had kicking around for a while in the back of my mind is a little box you could take with you when you travel. And it just listens to every channel on the band plan where you are. You tell it where you are, you give it a copy of the repeater directory as a hint. And it basically inventories everything it can hear, including digital. Digital will be next. Right now, I'm not doing anything with digital, but Jonathan and I have been talking quite, the guy does the MMDVM about integrating the two, and he's working on that now. So this will happen eventually.
Yep.
I got to go. I'm going
Okay.
to microwave
Well,
meeting. See you guys.
Thanks for being there, Phil.
Yeah, I might listen in the car, but I won't be talking. See you guys.
Bye.
73.
We've got a winter field day coming up, but this evening the wind's pretty brisk out there, and Clint's probably trying hard to stay warm.
Yes.
Here, and the chill factor is pretty high. It's been single digits the last couple of mornings. So I was going to do some spectroscopy, but I just can't quite drag myself out there. And I tried to do winter field day last year, and it was a reasonably decent day, cool and not very breezy. But boy, by the time we were wrapping up, my hands were pretty darn cold. That's kind of a problem.
So who all is going to Dayton this year?
Well, I am.
I am.
I'm planning to.
Dave can work 2 booths this year.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, if we put the Tapper booth and the HamSCI booth next to each other like we've been doing.
Yes. I
That
assume
works
so.
well.
Yeah, I probably should ping Nathaniel about getting the HamSCI table paid for. That's a good idea.
Rob, I gave a report of what you told me, but people are dwindling off tonight, so. And then Phil had another meeting.
Well, that's okay. It's healthy that I'm not here to dominate the conversation and hijack it all. So, uh, the I think if you've communicated what I've done, I think the important thing to this group is Bill Engelke. Yeah, Bill, I'm starting to upload now the float files. This is and it seems like you that you have no trouble displaying them. If I can show you the example of the first one that I put up. Let's see, where is it's oh, wait a second. There's the personal weather station page. Um, so this is the first one. It's not a full day, but you can see that this is floating point data now instead of the 16-bit int wave files. And it seems like your site is able to handle it very well. But I think that it once again emphasizes the importance of being able to display the amplitude in decibels rather than in these absolute values. So I would hope I just asked ChatGPT to to give me a little Python program, and let's see if I to translate the wave file into a spectrogram, and uh, it it did it in well. This is I didn't tell it really very well uh, uh, what it should how it should create the graph, but the graph looks like this if you go into a let's see here back again there this is this now this does the intensity it didn't recognize it as an IQ file so but you can see that you know translating things into decibels is very helpful. It gives you a real dynamic range view. So I'm hoping that the spectrograms, when there's floats especially, but even for the nths, that if the spectrogram display from the personal weather station server uh, either defaults to decibels or has an option where you could decide to output, you know, look at the spectrogram with decibels, you get a view of, you know, there's a 70 dB range in intensity here over time. So I think it would be it would increase the usefulness of the spectrograms to be able to do so.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we're doing that already with the Grape One DRF.
Uh-huh.
And what allowed me to do that is one of the fellows in the New England Grape group. His call escapes me at the moment. But anyway, he was able to get a calibrated signal generator. And one evening, he started out and he set the signal generator at about 8 different known output levels and let it run for an hour at each one.
Mm-hmm.
And his system uploaded as normal. And I got this very nice stair step. And he was able to tell me which of the stair steps was what decibel level. And then I was able to do a regression and come up with the mapping of the data to decibels.
Perfect. That's exactly what we need to do with the 888 because the values that now the float values that are being uploaded, there's no AGC applied to them. So we can trace from the RF SMA port of the RX 888 to the sample values that are uploaded to Whisper to your server. There's no AGC applied. So they can be completely calibrated, which means we can compare not only frequencies but amplitude intensities between different sites. Now there remains the differences between the antennas, right? The receive systems will, well, we're working on that part of it, of course, in the antenna project. But if there are different antennas, then of course there'd have to be some adjustment associated with the differing antennas. But it would be very the rest of the signal chain is now yeah, is has no AGC, so it's end to end it's calibrated. Now we don't have the calibration now, although I think we have a
Well,
pretty good idea. I
I'm
think
I'm a bit confused though. What needs to be calibrated in terms of dB?
you need to know if you put in minus 75 dB, you want to know you want to
you
make
mean
sure that it comes out as minus 75
you
here on
mean
the.
minus 75 dBm?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant that. Yes.
Okay, okay. I mean that will vary per individual site. So in the PWS package you're sending it, you darn well better send out a calibrated a variable frequency signal generator as well, and
Well,
then with instructions how to use it.
well, part of it is, Clint, is that if we were to use the Glenn's single antenna, then the differences between the sites would be everything else. The site, the antenna is a calibrated antenna, so there will be a E field to RF going into the. It's basically unity gain, right? His single antenna is unity gain, as it's currently designed. So the voltage present on the at the dipole feed points is exactly the same voltage presented to the RX 888.
Right, but especially at lower frequencies, the receptiveness of the antenna varies with height above ground too.
Well, you're right,
And
and that's
the
part of.
ground and whether or not
And,
you're
and of course,
near a house. Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
no, we can't eliminate all the variables, but we can minimize them, and attempt to, and maybe if you have an idea of how we could go about calibrating this, with a signal source, that'd be even better, so we could calibrate receive sites. But I think we've made some. I think that we've eliminated one variable and complexity by uploading floats. We no longer have to associate metadata with the sample values. They are absolutely they are absolutely relatable to the the RF intensity at the SMA antenna input of the SMA input to the RX 888. But anyway, I just it's been a year-long project to get this working. The floats, using the floats for whisper decoding, which is kind of a separate branch of the signal path. There is a slight improvement seen. We've observed in comparing the same antenna feeding two 888s. One having the Phil's code convert to ints, and the other having Phil's code operate its output its raw floats. There seems to be maybe a half a dB or maybe 1 dB improvement in the signal noise ratio. I think it's more because of the awkward AGC channel gain AVG that's in the. I don't think there's. It looks like the dynamic range of the signals is on the order of, maybe 30 to 40 dB, which is well within the range of an int. So if you can have 16-bit int, so if So I don't think we gain a lot from the floats in terms of our ability to detect more signals. I think it just allows us to have a much easier way to calibrate end to end. And we need to go, someone needs to go through and calibrate the values presented to the server, the Bill server, the float values presented to it, how they relate to the signal levels that are going into the 888. So that's a task to be done, I think, in my opinion. Somebody needs to do that. I should turn off this phone, so there's no reason for it to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, so if we could fund somebody who has a calibrated signal generator and an RX 888 system, this is something could be done in a single day on a
Yeah,
laptop
it's
system.
yeah. I don't think it's not a big.
Well, no, Phil has already done so. So it's the K9Q radio does accurately read within the variance of manufacture of components the absolute signal levels on the 888 using K9Q radio. It already does that.
So this chart that I presented, the dB levels of the samples, the float dB levels are reflect
What?
the dBm
Well,
on the input to the SMA? Because
well,
that,
um, well, in some way, yes, but you'd probably want to get with Phil on how they do, but they can, as of should be relatable directly with the level on the input terminals of the
yeah,
antenna at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
I mean, Phil is OCD about this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the unknown here is what is 0 dBm in the wave file. And then that gets converted to the DRF. We need to verify that.
Well, we already know it's DBFS on K9Q radio.
Well, what's DBFS on the K9Q radio? How does
I
that?
mean,
How does it go? What's the correspondence between 0 DBFS on the?
that's probably a Phil question.
Okay.
That's probably a Phil question because
Okay.
I don't know because I mean I don't know how he scaled it. Is it like +1 -1 equivalent to full scale with no AGC gain or what? I mean that's a Phil question because when he adjusts the front end gain, he scales it so things don't change. The only thing that changes is the noise floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I bet you money that they're already related, but you're going to have to. But Phil could answer that question. I'll
Okay.
bet he could.
Okay. Well, I have been off in my corner working on this for a couple months, so I'm re-engaging with the with Phil and others. I will discuss it with him.
Yeah,
So,
if somebody would give me the mathematics to do the conversion, I'd be happy to include it into the program.
yeah.
I don't have the skills in signal processing to be able to do it myself, even with what you've told me.
No. You know, it's not. We're not asking you to do this, Bill. This is for Phil and me and
Right.
Glenn and Clint and people like that.
Now, there's a bit of a caveat here, of course. We don't know what the manufacturing variability of the 888s are, and also Phil, I think, has only done this calibration at one frequency. So for it to be valid, whatever this program would need would be a fudge factor table for frequency. Because on my blog, I show how below 1.5 meg the stock 888 is pretty terrible, unless you remove the
bias T.
bias T inductor, right?
Yeah.
And also, by the time you get 6 to 60 meg, it's down several dB as well. I suspect they're fairly consistent, but I mean, n equals 1 does not valid stat make. So
I have a stack of them here. I could ship them for you if you want to work through a set of samples to see the variability. I'll send them off to you.
Yeah, I have 4 of them available to me, but I think they're all similar vintage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but the thing is they are probably closer than anything we have had. I mean, with respect to each other, than anything we have had so far. And if you remove the biased T inductor, I mean, we can make two sets of tables, like, is it there or is it not, or something like that, and get within a few dB. I mean, the big variability will be, as you say, it's, what's the excitation of the antenna related to the terminal voltage on the receiver, and that is almost unknown, except in the rare case of Glenn's antenna, we think.
We think maybe well, Glenn's intention is to be able to basically have a direct relationship between the E field impinging upon the dipole, his dipole, and the RF signal levels that are being reported by the whole system. So that's his goal.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're starting somewhere, though. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is probably other than a purely scientific intended, piece of equipment. This is probably the first thing that in the amateur realm that has come close to this.
It's looking pretty good. I guess Michael isn't with us, but I don't know. I don't see him, but he is working closely with Glenn. So I think that and we are uncovering the process. We are elucidating the process of how do you calibrate and establish that you have a good receive site. And Michael's working, I think, very closely with Glenn on this. I mean, he's discovered that, for example, Glenn's latest board, Shack board, you need to run it in a particular mode to cancel out the common mode noise that's introduced in the Shack. And once you do so, it's 14, 15 dB lower. And at Michael's site, his site is quiet enough that you need to cancel out that common mode noise, because otherwise that dominates it impinges upon the sensitivity at the higher frequencies. So, well, anyway, that's one thing. Another subject is that so far we're running tests now, but it's encouraging. We have encouraging results that you can run the 888 at pretty much any external clock frequency you want. Scott has been reported. I think he's been running at 10 megahertz for quite some time, and but he was the only one I knew who was doing it. And I don't think I have remote access to Scott's system, so I don't know how it's configured or running. But we have at Elmer N3 AGC yesterday, we configured his AAAs to run at the same external clock frequency as the Kiwis. The Kiwis demand really a 66.672 megahertz external clock. And it's been a real inconvenience for there's 100 Whisper Demon sites, many of whom have Bogners, but they have single output Bogners. So, they can't GPS DO their 888. So it's a real impediment to the adoption of and deployment of 888s that you have to buy another Bogner, right, for $175 or whatever. It's more expensive than the 888 to be able to get it disciplined. Well, that's no longer required. You can feed the same clock frequency to the 888 as you feed to the other devices in your home network. So that seems to be working pretty well. Well, like everything, you need to test over time. So, I want to see days and days of reliable operation before I'm certified. But this is I think, a very encouraging opportunity or capability that Phil had and Franco. I think we owe the capability to Franco, really. But Phil has included a support for it in his config files. And if you configure your 888 for another clock frequency, it seems to run just fine. So if you have only a 10 megahertz clock running around your Shack, you can use a 888 and discipline it. So that seems to be the case. So for me, that was a big deal because a lot of Whisper Demon users, I've encouraged them over the time to GPS discipline their Kiwis, and of course now they're saying, well, but we got to buy another Bogner to run this AAA, So anyway, that's so floating point, AAA calibration. Uh, let's see, Antarctica. I think Dave may have earlier indicated that Professor Harche, is well, he should now be at Neumayer Station uh, in uh, in Antarctica, and over the next week or two, I expect that he will have his 888 and a whisper song transmitting from the base station, and they have a remote. I think it's 1 or 2 kilometers away. They have a remote station for receiving. So that will be a full-on Whisper Demon Grape from Neumeier, hopefully within the month. So let's see, what else am I thinking of? There's I don't know if anybody have a question for me. I don't.
I do have a question for you, Rob. Do you think that whether it's you or somebody else in the HamSCI antenna group would be willing to give a talk at the HamSCI workshop coming up in March?
Well, I could talk. I can't come to the workshop in person. Gwen is coming, and he's to give another one of his stunning presentations. But I can't be there in person, so we're moving. So this precludes the trip. And so if a remote presentation would be acceptable, then I'd be happy to do something on Zoom or whatever and do that.
Okay, I'll talk to the other. I'm not sure if we're doing remote presentations tonight. I imagine we are, but well, I'll know better on Friday. So that
Okay.
helps. That helps. Thank you.
Okay, but yeah, I'd be happy to do it. I think we're on target to have the Glenn single antenna as an alternative. But it's going to be, we have to see that it's compelling. There's a compelling reason. But whether we use it or not, the process that I think Michael is going through will greatly inform our abilities to validate sites and to monitor the performance of sites. I mean, I have over 100 Whisper Demon sites now, which maddens me because there's always these things that happen and I have to go look at them because people says it's down, something is broken. But it means that I do have a lot of experience with supporting a wide, receive sites distributed around the world, and it's time consuming, and it's and it if you don't know the internals of the components you're working with, it can be really frustrating to try to figure out what's going on. So so I have a lot of I wouldn't say apprehension, but I have a lot of appreciation for the need for us, and Michael is wonderful, but I think we need some more people who want to participate in the support and monitoring, right? Especially monitoring the performance of these the sites you select. I mean, it's going to be your choice, Gary, but I think at some point, I don't know who's in the decision process group for selecting the receive sites, but I would hope that you would, before you and whoever else is involved in that, would maybe we should have a session to go through and explain that how we monitor, how we can monitor these sites, and how we go about evaluating their performance on installation and how we monitor their continuing performance over time. Because my experience is one of the great tools I have that I use a lot, I depend upon, is Bill's. It didn't report emails. Phil, those are great because they tell me if something isn't reporting. I get an email telling me that things are down, and that's a wonderful, wonderful tool. But there's that's a kind of it's there or it's not tool. We also may want there's impairments that occur. Oh, the antenna fell down or whatever. So you're still getting data, but it's worthless data.
Well, we
And
are going to be doing a data quality package as part of DAISY 2,
yeah,
which will know what to look for, what constitutes data that indicates, good readings, and what constitutes, well, the antenna is broken, or the front end of the receiver is blown or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I would think that this is almost something you could do with AI, where you could just say, "Has there been some abrupt change in the reports from this, this site that are, that are that would indicate that there's something unusual has happened there." I mean, anyway, it seems like something well suited to AI. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm sure we could do that. Sure.
yeah, yeah. I
The data we're working with is relatively simple, so just simple Bayesian things can also work very well too. So
yeah. Um. Anyway, that's I think that's the main thing. I'm still working with the Orange Pi. Phil has I still hope that it could be the basis for our Daisy 2 deployments. Not only because it's lower cost, but it's also it's a 5-volt device instead of a 19-volt device. It's it's just yeah, smaller, lower power. But and Phil has made some changes to his code that may uh, help the Orange Pi. It has just one frailty to it, which I've described previously, and I'm hoping that with Phil's help, I can work around that problem. So that's I don't know. Any other questions here? So, hmm.
That's good for me. It's getting late in Ohio, so I'm going to sign off
Yeah.
for tonight. So.
Okay. Well, good. Well, okay. Well, that's good. Well, I'll post up. I don't tend to post up to my progress and activities tend to go to the Whisper Demon forum, not to the HamSCI forums. So, and I just don't know how many people in HamSCI are really interested in my work. So I don't want to, um, you know, broadcast things that are not of interest to a group. But okay, let's see. Who's Jonathan's here? I'm sorry I missed most of the call, but uh, this meeting occurs right at dinner time out here, and so it I get distracted. Do I have anything for Scott? I don't know. Scott and Glenn are Scott. I've been running the I've made the default configuration of Whisper Daemon. It's your latest code. Continues to be whenever a Whisper Daemon user runs, so command line Whisper Daemon command, it'll load your latest code. And I noticed when I just did it earlier this meeting, I pulled out, I don't know, version 51 or something, 251, which I haven't really looked at. But it seems like you and Glenn are in pretty good communications about the capabilities. I have made the default for Whisper Daemon to run your K9Q web. It is a B1 or something, the 8-bit mode, and in that mode, the total communication bandwidth is about 140 kilobits, which of course is with no audio, which is I never turn on audio. My hearing is so bad, and I'm I hear very poorly, uh, but also I'm more interested in digital signals. The we've got okay, bye, Joe. Um, the is there so it works very well, and I would encourage you, Scott, to work on what Glenn wants rather than try to, work on compressed audio or compressing the waterfall or anything. Because at 8-bit mode, I think I get really good looking charts from QWeb, and at 140 kilobits, and that's a pretty minimal bandwidth. So I can have multiple QWeb windows open, looking at multiple sites simultaneously, and I don't think I'm burdening any of them with the traffic. So I would encourage you uh, to focus on other things. Focus on the um, uh, putting on top the ITU charts or whatever. That kind of stuff is more important, I think, to our use of your code than getting the bit rate down. So that's
Yeah. I think I sent out a couple of emails and you were probably copied on this very subject. Glenn had several new ideas that kind of dovetail into some things we'd been discussing, the ITU curve, the min-max
yeah.
hold, which is you've probably just seen, that sort
I,
of thing.
Yeah. Well, well, my message to you is that's great, and that's what you should be working on. I think that my, I have just nothing but, it's wonderful to have your code. I don't think people appreciate that. In fact, it's so wonderful that I'm going to include the ability set up. I'm going to set up in Whisper Daemon users that every Whisper Daemon user with a 888 will have his 9Q web page. Um, he will offer it through the whisperdemon.org. Now, I won't make it public. So people will have to ask me and say, "It's okay. I want my 888 to be accessible remotely." Um, so and that takes me or Michael will take me or Michael, a minute to enable public access to someone's site. I don't want to make anyone's site by default available to the public, but we're going to make it as easy as possible. So. And there's a bunch of them available now. I mean, basically, Glenn likes to have, and most people I think are happy. In fact, this is one thing, Scott. Have you done any investigations into the security of the 9Q web server? The Onion server, I guess, is the.
No. I did
Okay.
ask Brett a couple of weeks ago. He had made some
Yeah.
comments about that and suggested using Nginx as a reverse proxy. I looked into that. It's simple. I don't know that it gets you anything.
Yeah.
And, as far as the WebSocket web server library, I don't know anything about it. When I
Yeah.
stole the color map from the Kiwi SDR, it appeared they're using Mongoose, which I have heard of, which may be a more popular choice. But, in the before times, I don't know why Onion was chosen.
Well,
So,
that's the yeah. Well, I don't know how to go. I don't think that you know the way only it's really the server itself, the port 8081. What can you do? Is there a way to hijack that port and when 9Q is on it using Onion? And I don't know how to go out and to evaluate that, but that's the only exposure that Whisper Daemon users have is their 8081 port is exposed to the public if they choose. Now, again, most by default they're not public, but if they do make it public, then that one port is exposed. I don't know that there's a tool that that you could use to kind of attack a port. I mean, you can use Nmap or something, I guess, but I'm not sure that that's the right tool to go in and attack the port to see if there's any vulnerabilities to it. Um, but uh, uh, but my sense is that I did a, I said, I asked ChatGPT, is the Onion server real vulnerable? And it said, no, this is considered to be a relatively secure kind of, and, web service. So that's just, but I didn't go any farther than that. So that's, um, but maybe I'll ask Brett. He's our IT expert, and I'll ask him to maybe do I mean, I really need to. We need to validate and immunize all of our um, all of the public interfaces. I don't know how that's done for you, Bill. Bill, you're still with us, yeah. How is that done? I mean, what is the IT? How does the IT department there kind of uh, immunize their the public interfaces that they offer?
You're
Do you?
asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Do you know? I
No.
mean, I wouldn't know how to do it. So you don't. You can say I don't know, and I will not be a. I won't.
I know that they have a whole team dedicated to it.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Is it?
UA is a multi-billion-dollar operation with a
Yeah.
big public interface, and so
Yeah.
they are a big fat target. So they take it. In fact, I want to get some new servers put together to do the new efforts we're going to do. They need better capacity and a more up-to-date operating system and things. And I'm going to have to actually get one of our directors to pull rank to get them to do it, I'm afraid, because they're really not, even with funding, they're so overloaded with work, and what they do is so tricky and ticklish. I mean, it's,
Yeah. Well,
mistake, you can bring down the whole system, the whole
yeah.
university.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm just wondering how we could work in that context. That we've brought up two servers in Utah as Whisper Demon servers, and we are becoming more and more aware of the fragility of the WhisperNet.org server system. There's really no authentication at all with it. There is no. I mean, there's minimal authentication. You have to have an account. Um, but um, so we're seeing, we've been doing investigations looking into what we call phantom spots. These are spots that are clearly not from beacon, actually operating beacons, and trying to understand why these phantom, because they pollute the database. And this is an effort that's being led primarily by Phil Barnard, VK7JJ, who runs the Whisper.rock site, and Jim Lill, WA2ZKD, who has his own site, and Uli, ON5KQ. The three of them have been hot on this. But it appears that a lot of the bogus spots we were seeing were associated with the AAK Whisper Demon beacon that Michael Neruda was operating for us. And the latest emails I got were that now that that beacon has gone off air, the rate of bogus spots has gone down. But they're still there. I mean, if you try to do a search on 2,200 meters, look what comes up over the last week. Half of the spots are bogus spots. They're just, they're from the middle of Antarctica or, the North Polar places.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of that can be just noise too.
Yeah.
Because, that's the noisiest band in the world. 22
Yeah.
acres.
Well, of course, in any case, they've been trying, both Phil and Jim in particular, have been trying to see how they could filter out those spots from the database, which is of course kind of a dangerous thing to do because then you might be eliminating good data. So, but in any case, this is a problem that I don't think it's so important that, Nathaniel does his analysis in science, I think, based upon very large data sets. And so these bogus spots are kind of down in the noise. But
Actually, in terms of the entire amount of data we get on a given day,
yeah,
all the whisper data is in the noise. It
yeah.
constitutes less than 5% of the data we have to analyze.
Well, the whisper demon, yes. Whisper spots represent 5 to 10% of. Yeah, I noticed we recently, a few months ago, I added uploading to a PSK reporter. So whisper demon sites now upload whisper for FT4, FT8 spots to a PSK reporter, so you can see them there.
Well,
So
the problem is we're doubling them up because I'm processing the WhisperNet data in, and if it's the same stuff as reported PSK reported twice.
well, you're gonna see a lot of duplicates now because yeah, I just take the data that the Whisper Daemon system, the Whisper spots, and of course I upload them in their condensed form to whispernet.org. In their fully expanded form, the same spots are uploaded to whisperdaemon.org. And in their condensed form, they are uploaded to PSK Reporter. So now PSK Reporter gets the same set of spots as does WhisperNet. They come from the same decode stream. So it's not, they're not decoded separately. The decode logs are replicated from the upload to WhisperNet and over to the upload to PSK Reporter. So, and as you would expect, the Whisper spots represent maybe 5% of the total uploads that go
But
to.
they're important though, and here's why. Um, that system that Phil Gladstone runs is quite elegant, but it's something that runs. It's like an SR-71. I mean, it's running so fast and processing so many spots, thousands per second, that there's little glitches in it here where you'll lose it. Very commonly we will lose, okay, he produces 8 sets of files per day and we process them all, and very often one of those sets of files will not come through. And so for a while that would crash my program, and I didn't realize it till I noticed that, Mary Lou was saying some of the files, some of the days are dark, which means that the heat maps had very little on them because they were expecting to see PSK data, and the PSK data had been left out entirely because the PSK conversion program had crashed because it was missing data. So, but they've still been able to do quite a bit of analysis using just the Whisper and RBN reporter data. So it's invaluable to have it because of the fact of what, PSK reporter is running under such high load and such a high stress all the time that you can't necessarily have perfect operation. And I don't know all the reasons for that. I mean, this is something being done by a volunteer. This isn't a mainframe provided by IBM or anything. Phil does this on his own nickel, and it's remarkable what he's done and what he's doing. But I'm not going to complain about it if sometimes the data is missing, because that happens with satellites too. That you gotta make your data analysis tolerant of missing data if you're going to use this geophysical data. It just happens. So
yeah. Well, we've had these problems with the the WhisperNet data. Even it has problems. Of course, you know the well-known outages, but even apart from that, on a daily basis, um, we get a different set of a superset of the data, um, the Whisper from WhisperNet, than what they publish. So they are curating their the data they put into their daily or monthly zip files, which they update daily. That data actually misses spots that they've, they I think they what they do is I think they consider those spots as bogus in some way, you know, uh, and so they leave it out. And I'm they try to curate out duplicate spots. For example, if somebody runs two antennas and two Whisper WSJTXs with the same reporter ID, um, then WhisperNet will see those come up and say, "Hey, I don't, I've already got this spot from you. You've already told me this," so they throw it away. WhisperNet throws it away. And sometimes many times that's a good solution, but other times actually it turns out that it's the wrong, it loses valuable data.
Well, do you think that they're cleaning out the data that the bogus or the noise that's coming out from the AA8K on, like, especially on 2200 meters or something like
No,
that?
no, as far as I know, and one of my Whisper Demon group members is Irwin, F4VTQ, and he's the admin for the whispernet.org site. So he is, and so he doesn't really know what Bruce is doing all the time. But it appears that Bruce has implemented, and Gary, I forget Gary's call sign, but anyway, the two of them have implemented a year or so ago an algorithm that looks for duplicates. An algorithm to look for duplicate spots like I've described, and it's it means that either you have to report with a different ID, in which case you now have, you don't know really what you have to go through their site, and you can't easily compare the two antennas that way, but there's some way to do it. But it's not a very they really have actually to their credit have a better query tool than Philip does for the PSK reporter. I mean, Philip really doesn't offer a very much of a query tool to his database, and to some extent I can understand that. Um, if you're someone running a MySQL or using Postgres or MySQL for your database, this data stream, especially the PSK data stream, is going to really burden your database. Um, the um, the database engine we use, the ClickHouse, is anywhere from 100 to 1,000 times more efficient. I mean, it's startlingly different levels of efficiency. So we could easily ingest. I mean, I don't even see the CPU utilization from WhisperNet ingesting the WhisperNet stream. I mean, I can't even see it. It's so small on my CPU chart. So it, if Philip were interested in upgrading the operating system, the database environment, there are environments that are much more powerful and better suited to this application than I believe. I believe that WhisperNet uses Drupal and underneath it MySQL. And these are not these databases are not well suited to this data set, this time series data set that we're dealing with. Uh, we even looked when we started the WhisperNet Daemons project. We looked at a product called Timescale database, um, which supposedly was optimized for database performance, and we still use it, but it is literally 100 times slower than. Now you can do full-on SQL queries on it, so we maintain it. So actually, when the extended Spot database that comes to WhisperDemon, it's actually put into two separate databases. It puts into timescale slash Postgres. So you've got industry standard open source, um, full on SQL queries available. And the same spots are registered with the ClickHouse database. Well, we hardly use the timescale database because it's so occupies so much space. It's 10 to 100 times slower to do queries on it. And for the kinds of queries you want to do on our the data that we're looking at, time series kind of data, it's not well suited. So I'm thinking, we have one of the projects is Andrew, whose last name escapes me, has installed a scraper for PSK Reporter on the Whisper Daemon 4, our next generation server. So he is scraping the PSK Reporter database and putting into a ClickHouse database, which means you can do queries like you could never think of doing. I mean, you can do full on, it's not full SQL, but it's 90% of SQL kind of capabilities and lightning fast. So I don't know, that might be a resource useful to you guys because I think this is Philip Gladstone provided Andrew with the API interface to do the scraping of PSK Reporter. And once we get it into our environment, it just runs so much faster. And you can do all these kinds of validation and correlation things that are just impractical to do if you're trying to do it through a regular Postgres-based database system.
Well, Rob,
Anyway.
I'm going to have to call it a night. It's getting
I'm
late.
sorry, I've kept you up.
But,
Anyway, thank you. Thank you. I look forward to seeing decibels on the vertical scale at some
well,
point.
as soon as somebody gives you the math on how to do it, I'll put it in there.
Okay. Well,
That's what we
we'll
got to do.
say.
Got to find out somebody who's able to figure that out.
Okay. Well, that's good. We'll send you once we get some correlation here. I think we basically just need to set what is the 0 dBm RF at the SMA connector, and what does that translate into the floating point values? I think after that it has to be completely linear. It's a completely linear system.
As long as it's linear, well, that's
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Bill. Take care. Good night. Okay. Well, have I driven everyone else off? I don't know if there's I see Clint is probably frozen. Scott, you're there. Yeah. Aha. Clint,
Yeah.
I hardly recognize you.
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's probably about 48 in here, and it's supposed to get down to 29 tonight.
Oh, well, we're getting down into the 30s here in California, so it's, but we're inside of a house, so it's,
Right, yeah. The winds died down, though, mostly, and it's supposed to, but it was up to like 40-mile-an-hour gusts today that, sent lots of dust and things flying if they weren't lashed down or weighed down. But I moved inside the tent, so.
Okay, well, that looks quite spacious and well illuminated.
Yeah, I have a string of Christmas lights in there. LED Christmas lights are great because the whole string draws like 3 watts or something.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing, the efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I haven't interacted with any of your systems recently since the upgrade.
As far as I can tell, everything is working. So.
Okay. Well, I will be upgrading. I just need to validate that the latest 331 works properly with the Kiwis, and once I do that, then I'm really ready for beta testing, and start to put things out at sites like yours, and get a
And since we installed our capacitor, we haven't seen the B-Link random reboot. So, I mean, it'll run for at least a second and a half on the capacitor alone. We don't know how long it will run, but because we didn't want to interrupt it, we just kind of like we tried progressively longer power interruptions and chickened out at 1.5 seconds. But that's enough. But anyway, that is one problem that you need to keep in the back of your mind, that that normal UPS may not switch fast enough. Another ham has noticed the same thing. He went to those NUCs around his computers, and he discovered too that UPSs aren't, if there's a power bump, the UPSs, some of them will reboot. They just have no battery.
Things like that, Eaton and so on.
Yes. The UPS we have up there, is actually faster than it's not Eaton, but it was a
APC.
No, it wasn't an AP. Well, let's see. They're the ones that bought Triplight. It could have been an Eaton. Yeah, it could have been an Eaton. That's one that, it is a commercial UPS, and now we have we have something by Renogy that's way that's more stable than what we had before, the Eaton we had before, and if you hook a lamp up to it, incandescent lamp, you can barely tell that there was an interruption, but the computer sees it.
Oh, yeah. I thought all these things ran all the time off the batteries, and
no, they don't. No, almost none of them do.
Really? No, well, that's what I do at KPH and here at the house. I say I've got a battery and I have one of these mountain radio things, which I think just has and when that really seems to work really well.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of the consumer grade UPSs, the same thing. The circuit that makes the AC is also used for charging, so they have to kind of turn it all around and everything else. In some cases, but there are very, very few true online UPSs out there that wouldn't cost a ton of money. Where essentially they're a battery charger running, float charging an inverter, battery for an inverter running.
Well, that's what this mountain radio thing is. It's of course it doesn't output 110 volts. It's just the 12 volts. It has some kind of Schottky diode in it, and
in the thing I built with the supercapacitor, we're using an ideal diode, and that has like 20 millivolts drop. So you can get there. It's pretty much a perfect diode. It's a commercial product. You can get them on Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they'll handle 10 amps, and they have about 10 milliohms of series resistance, and that is the drop. So if you're running 10 amps through the sucker, you're getting 100 millivolts of 100 millivolts or so of drop through this quote diode unquote.
Yeah.
And that's what we used.
Okay. Well, I haven't. I don't know. This is something I bought long before I met you. But I found this mountain radio device, which you connect it up to it operates at 12 volts or 13.5 volts.
Right.
And I have one at KPH and I have one here. I don't have that at KFS, and I've experienced at KFS. I've experienced some outages there recently. So I suspect that maybe that the UPS is kicking in downstairs when they have an outage.
Right. And the thing we had with the B-Link is that the B-Link wouldn't reboot; it just would stop, and the only way it would not reboot. It would just hang, and the only way to do it was remotely kick the power, kick the main voltage off and turn it back on. That did it, but I can only imagine what it might be doing to the SSD or the CMOS or who knows what when it gets in a weird state like that.
So I had I've wanted to take care of that I think that KFS needs an upgrade. I've also noticed that I think that when the winds kick up or there's we have rain, a lot of rain, the connectivity falls apart. It becomes intermittent. So I think
Yeah,
that,
yeah. The connectivity goes pretty flaky when the so like when I hear the antenna wires rattling,
yeah, yeah.
just tearing up everything below 40 meters, you can kind of count on the connection being ratty to
I
internet
talked
connection.
I talked with Brett about, could we set the system up to fail over to a cell phone internet connection, but
Hmm.
that wouldn't we couldn't support everybody that way, but it would allow us to continue to access the uh, the site. But
Right.
I don't know. Brett says I haven't been able to get the Ubiquity routers configured and implement those failovers properly. So so we'd have to have some other router, or either that, or it'd have to do a lot of work to figure out how to get Ubiquity to do it right. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, but I would like to, now and I think that we looked at, were you looking at it at the OPI with me the other day? There's horrendous noise. I think you pointed it out that it's almost certainly within the rack because there's all this low frequency noise in there, RFI.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I forget
Yeah,
I think that was Wednesday. Yeah, somebody went
yeah,
down below. But I mean, yeah. If everything is nice on the feed from the Omni, you should see nothing below 2 megahertz
yeah,
at all. Really at all,
yeah,
except
yeah,
very faint leakage. But yeah, and we think you have an open shield or something,
yeah.
or
I
just a
I
horrific
I I
sound
need
loop.
to yeah. Well, if I can get this 311 checked in and installed a few places, I'll feel like I'll have I can spend an afternoon out at a KFS and do take a look at that. I'll bet that it's the power supply that I'm using to power the that orange Pi. I'm
Okay.
it's I just took the power supply that came with the Pi 5 and plugged it in. It's in the AC power outlet, and
I I I,
and
wo- I wonder if there's a meanwhile that Jameco sells that would have a USB-C on it.
Hmm.
I mean, I mean,
Craig left a USB-C cable that is coming from his 5-volt terminal strip there. And
okay.
I think currently I have it plugged into a Pi 4 that I have out there, which I have been using with the Pi 4 I was using with the AirSpy, I think. I can't remember if it was AirSpy or the SDR Play. I think it was the AirSpy. Had the AirSpy connected to the Pi 4. But Phil just this afternoon said, "Oh, can I upgrade it?" He's integrated, SDR Play support is now integrated into 9Q through his
Yeah,
library.
yeah, yeah. That's right. He was telling me about that last
Yeah,
week.
yeah. So he wanted to upgrade it. I said, "Fine, go upgrade it." But he's somehow hosed the Pi. I could ping it, but I can't SSH into it. And and it's the one device because it's connected to that USB-C cable. I cannot remotely power cycle the Pi. So I have to physically go out there in order to get to reboot that device and get it back online. But Phil wants to always be upgrading to do all the apt update upgrade process and get the latest and greatest. And I have a completely opposite philosophy. I don't install anything unless I really need to, because it seems to me every time I do it, I end up with having to debug something, with
Right.
so but I think it's more important to him because he does a C programming and he's using these different libraries and compilers features and so on. Um, one of the few advantages I think of having written almost all of Whisper Demon in Bash is that I've never had a problem. Well, we had one problem with Bash, that the Bash 5.1 had a memory leak, so we couldn't run on it. Um, but everything else has been fine, so I don't have that problem.
Yeah, you just, I don't know how good it is. I just looked here on the at Jameco sites. I actually found Meanwell does make a 100-watt USB-C charger.
It does.
So yeah, it's like $60, but it'll output let's see what
Does
power
it? Does
delivery.
it?
It has power delivery on it, but it has USB-C and USB-A ports on it, and it's not clear how much current it'll produce at. I think it'll produce 5 amps per port. So anyway,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
uh,
what's the? It's 110 volt in, and
yeah, and it has 2 USB-C and 2 USB-A ports, and the A ports are rated for 3 amps each. So I mean, you could easily run, you know, 4 of the biggest things, or you could probably run if you just, I mean, you could probably just use a USB-C hub and to split power around, and you could probably run practically everything USB that needs 5 volts from the stupid thing, and it has a good power factor too. So and it's yeah
it is good. Well, I'm not I'm not
yeah
adverse to buying power and installing power supplies. I have a whole storage bin downstairs, plastic bin filled with Meanwells that I'm not using. So
right
this is another one.
right.
Uh, but I don't know. It would be great if I could persuade you guys to come out here and spend a week and help me with KFS because
Yeah,
it,
for the hell of it, I just put the link in there. I
I
mean,
saw that. I saw that.
yeah,
I mean,
just now, yeah. So, I mean,
uh,
I mean, I mean, when you if you have a limited UPS, the absolute most important thing is that whatever you're hooking up to your UPS is power factor corrected.
yeah,
I mean, the efficiency is less important.
yeah. Well, the thing is that I found my uh, mountain radio style 12 volt battery trickle charge approach seems to work extremely well. And I've
Right,
got a couple of 100 amp hour 12 volt batteries sitting out at KPH, brand new,
but
recolored.
it only gives you 12 volts, right?
Well, I could put them in series and get 24. Got
Okay,
two of
well, yeah,
them.
yeah. I mean,
So,
I mean the B links are of course 19 volts, so
well, that would, yeah, and I have the Meanwells that will do 24 to 19. Well, will they do
right.
24 to 19? I
Mhm.
have some 12 to 24 Meanwells.
Right.
I don't know if there's any reason to think that a step up a switcher is less reliable or efficient than a buck converter. Is there?
They're usually slightly less efficient, but not enough to worry about usually. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, so one of I had planned for I think for Maui that I do 12 volt to 19.5 volt step ups with the Meanwells
okay.
and try to run the whole site at 12 volts or.
Oh yeah.
And
Did
or
you get either 15 or like 20 volt mean wells and just twiddle the knob to get where you
yeah,
wanted? Yeah.
I got the 24 volt Meanwells
Okay.
and I was able to turn them down right to 19.5.
Okay.
So so and I tested them with the B links and they seem to work just fine. The B links were happy and
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwells.
Yeah. That'd be perfectly good. Yeah.
So I'm thinking that we would that maybe I'll reach in my next trip to KPH, I'll retrieve those batteries and put them in at KFS and use that because I don't I think that you're pointing out the problems with depending upon the building UPS. It's going to introduce glitches and to the whole environment, and the running everything at 12 volts off of a 12-volt battery. I think is a pretty good architecture.
Well, yeah, I mean that's yeah, it reduces the clutter of equipment in that sense. Yeah.
Although the only issue I have with that architecture is how can you remotely control the power volt lines to the individual devices? You know, because you want to be able to right now I can power cycle all of the B links out at KFS and KPH because I've got these TP link little
Right.
Kasha adapters, Wi-Fi adapters out there. But I'd like to get rid of them. I worry about them introducing RFI and so on. But they work
I
functionally.
don't. Yeah, we have some of those out at Utah Sierra. They don't make any noise. They use capacitive droppers, so they don't have a switcher in them.
Uh-huh.
So I
Well,
mean, they're negligible,
well,
far
but
from
but
we
uh,
can tell. But I know
but
what you mean.
yeah.
I mean, all you really need is any device that the network you can set a line high and low, and you can actually get P-channel high side switches on Amazon. I'm
I
sure. And
well, I
then you could
bought these
interrupt the
things.
power.
Well, I bought these, these Ethernet relay controlled Ethernet controlled web page controlled Ethernet, and they proved to be unreliable. They are the problem.
Yeah.
I couldn't reach the thing out at KPH to power cycle the Kiwis. So yeah, it was something from China that was a bare board. It was had a simple web page, and you could easily through the web page control the relays. But when I needed it, it wasn't there.
Yeah, Brett may have some suggestions on that.
Yeah, we need I think ideally for our quiet sites, we need some way to run them at 12 volts and still be able to control the and maybe this is just something that we need to design and have JLPCB fabricate or something. Um, I mean, it is. I don't know that there's such a device exists. I couldn't.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
they do exist, but they're really expensive. I mean, they're like hundreds of dollars for.
well, I mean, you could use it. I mean, something built around an ESP32 that tickles its
Yeah,
GPIO lines could be made rock solid, and I'll bet you there's something out there. The security would have to be applied downstream, on
I
the
don't.
switch
I,
or
they're all
right.
sitting. They're all sitting
Yeah,
behind firewalls, so I don't think.
right. That's
I
but
don't worry about that part of it.
yeah, I'll bet you there's any number of ESP32, and then, as I said, I'm sure you can find. I probably could go to Amazon and find some right now, just some P-channel switches that just hook 12 volt in, 12 or 19 in, and 19 out, and it goes on and off with the line that comes from the
Yeah.
ESP32.
Okay. Well,
I mean,
that's.
there's probably half a dozen components on those. You could make such a switch with just half a dozen components.
It's the simplest kind of device, but
Yeah,
if you have idle time to search for such a thing, I searched for them and I haven't found what I found it. So I don't.
right. Yeah, I could design one of those in my sleep, but
I well,
in fact,
Paul is out there trying to look for projects, and this might be
yeah,
something. If you can't find one, I mean, the one I found from China just was so poorly documented that and then it didn't work for me. I mean, it would work here, but six
yeah.
months later, when I tried to access it when there was
Okay, yeah,
I needed it, it didn't work.
yeah,
I couldn't.
there are two parts to this problem. A doohickey that makes lines go on and off, and the other doohickeys that you put at the points of control, power control.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean there are two separate problems there, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
So, and then you could put them in the same box, or you could just have control wires going off to individual, where they need to be. where the power needs to be. And in some cases like that, you make a box that has the female version of the connector that goes on the thing it's powered.
Yeah.
That's what we did for the capacitor. We just 2.5
Yeah.
by 5
Yeah.
millimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just I know exactly what you mean.
Well,
Yeah,
if it doesn't, Paul, I think is kind of maybe in the mode where he's ready to do to spin off a little project like that, and he's got all of the componentry there and the software development and PC board development and stuff. So it might be a good project for him. I mean, it would be, but first we need to go see if anybody offers it. I found one on AliExpress, I think, and I ordered it, and I had a couple of them, and they worked fine. They did what I wanted. They were very poorly, they had very poor documentation, um, and but they
yeah,
worked, except they didn't work when I needed them.
right,
I've got a backup. I bought two of them because I figured, well, the first one might fail or something. I might blow it up. But so it's sitting downstairs, and I mean, the example, it doesn't do DHCP, so they come up on the network, and they're always 192, 168, 1.66 or something. Well, then you got to do port. You have to add a second IP port to your interface to on your host computer to reach the thing. It's just that kind of stuff that you know it's not use. There's all these little gotchas to it. So
right.
Anyway, that's my product idea du jour. If it doesn't exist, but if you had occasion to look around and see if you can find something, that would be great.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah.
So
Brett keeps his ear to the ground on sort of thing. We have some commercial devices they're older, but that seem to be pretty solid that Brett uses on some of his remote sites. And then they have a few GPIO pins, and they also give statistics like voltage and stuff like that you can read
I have
back.
I have a couple of web control power strips that include things like ping features, and they'll
Right,
automatically power cycle a thing. But I want to get away from the AC power.
right, yeah,
Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe that's the wrong. Maybe I'm being foolish and trying to get rid of it. But it sure seems like if you run, if you have, if you need to have dual power supplies with a 12, that feed into the bus, the 12-volt bus, so that if one of them fails, you still have it. You run them off of separate circuits and legs in the house, and and then you've got a battery. I mean, you got to eliminate as many as single points of failure as possible. Um,
right.
uh, and I really need something, an upgrade for both KFS and KPH, and I think this is a problem. In a sense, it's a kind of a problem that might occur for HamSCI, users.
Uh, before I forget too, one of next to my tent, there's a sign that talks about the Northern Utah Web SDR, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. We're just kind of spreading the word. But I've had
Yeah,
more than one person ask me about KFS and how
yeah.
they can support KFS. Do you know anything yet?
Haven't heard a word. Let's see,
Okay,
maybe this week, maybe is it this week when they have their general meeting? I haven't heard from them. I,
okay,
I know that the president's inclined, but one of the other board members didn't even know what shortwave was. Here's an amateur radio operator, didn't know what KFS
okay.
was. So you can see that for some of them, it's like, why would we want to be involved in this? It's
Right, right. I mean, and the involvement would be just a pass through essentially. I like just a little bit of time for the treasurer just to to work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well,
It's
I
not
don't think.
It wouldn't be necessarily them going out and fixing stuff unless they wanted to. Yeah.
I communicated all that to them.
Yeah.
Basically, their only obligation is that I'd give them some bills for equipment occasionally and want them to reimburse me for them, you know. But other than
Right.
that, they didn't have to do anything. But, you know,
Yeah. They just have to keep it separate. Yeah, is all. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I don't know. There's only so many things I can, I can try to
Yeah.
make happen.
There's only 36 hours in a day and 10 days in a week that you
Yeah.
can do stuff.
Okay. So how much longer are you there at Quartzsite?
Sunday till I'm
Oh,
leaving Sunday
cool.
morning. Then I'm going to a friend's house. He lives in Tucson. Be there for a couple of days, then go up toward Flagstaff for another couple of days, and then so I won't be home for another more than a week.
Well, that's great. It's nice that
Yeah,
you're getting.
I did this last year, but this time I borrowed a Starlink from from a friend,
Uh-huh.
and
Oh,
so
that's
I
good.
actually, because the cell service is so overloaded here that you can text and you can send and receive plain text without attachments, and
Yeah.
you can usually get an analog phone call through. But if you want data, you have to do that like between 1 in the morning and 4 in the morning
Yeah.
when everybody's asleep. So
Wow. Okay. Well,
and the Starlink has been okay. I mean, I'm sure it seems. I did a speed test and it seems it's way slower than it was in Salt Lake. But then again, if you were to stand on a mountain and look down in this valley, you'd probably see maybe uh, 5,000 RVs, I'm guessing, on
Wow.
BLM land,
Wow.
and more of them have Starlinks, and there's only so much sky above you where satellites can inhabit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
only so much bandwidth that and all that.
True.
So
True for every ISP. When they first deploy it's incredibly fast. It's amazingly fast, and then gradually becomes more and more
yeah,
bogged down.
I could run the full video, and I was looking at the stats, and it's about 1.5 megabits in each
Mm-hmm.
direction if I bring up the screen, and I could do that, but this isn't my Starlink, and so I don't want to run up the bill. Although
It's
I'm sure what it'll say is don't worry about it, because I bought it from a guy who runs a company that if there's a disaster, they works for contracts with government agencies,
yeah.
and the first
Yeah.
thing to do is as soon as humanly possible, they get some sort of data communications, anything into the area. Then they bring in multi-gigabit wireless links from the nearest fiber landing point where it's available, so that they can get real data rather than this funky Starlink stuff, which kind of come and go when in really busy areas or is affected by
Yeah.
weather or something. So
Yeah.
that's what they do. They just how much data can we get? How much money do you want to pay us? That sort
Yeah.
of thing. They've pushed gigabits, over multi-hop microwave links,
Yeah.
tens of miles, and fortunately, most disaster areas are only, you know, uh, you know, tens of miles wide at
Yeah.
most,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, that's that's good. Well, I'm glad you're out there. I kind of envy you getting away from
yeah,
civilization.
yeah.
And
I tried to get Brett to come down here, but he wants to do winter field day, which is Saturday, I think, this coming Saturday, and
yeah.
he's sort of committed to do that, and also the BLM is a bit persnickety. For some reason this year they couldn't, the organizers couldn't get a variance to allow it's not a swap meet, it's a yard sale, because there's
Yeah.
rules against vending on
BLM.
BLM land. Although vending on BLM land happens all the time. There's trucks that go around pumping out and servicing RVs, and they're vendors.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
and other things too. But so I mean, they seem to have a blind eye for certain things.
selective enforcement. Well, we'll see a lot more of that in the next 4 years.
We'll see. Yeah. But
Uh,
one thing too that happened is that down here in Arizona, there's a lady that took over at the BLM that, everybody rolls their eyes because it's like, oh, it's her.
Oh.
And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I've heard from, even in Utah,
Yeah.
I've heard, like, before they were fairly flexible. Now it's like, well, it's not the rules say, but you have latitude. Well, I don't know that we want to do that anymore. That sort of thing. And but apparently when she first got appointed, it was really bad, and I think it seems to be relaxing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with what's down here. But anyway.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, stay in touch. It looks like you're more accessible than you've been in the past. So,
Right. I may or may not be able to pop in here. No, I'm planning to do a Jeep thing on Wednesday, so I probably
okay.
won't be here for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, drive on
Okay.
top of a mountain somewhere, and something like that. And I've never done that. I've been here several years, and I've never done that. And it sounds like fun. And that's
Okay.
why I
Well,
have a Jeep to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, make sure you wear your seatbelt and have roll bars and.
Oh yeah, there's those. Yeah.
There's all that things to worry. Just I've known several people who've died in uh, those kinds of circumstances. So
Right.
anyway,
okay. I've been plenty of places that would probably make you close your eyes and grip tightly, so and pucker. So, but yeah, I mean, just don't do anything stupid. So that's the
I'm
thing.
sure you'll be cautious.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Well, have a good time. I hope you learned something.
Yeah, I haven't been to any of the seminars yet, but anyway, we'll see. It's just fun to get out.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to bow out of here.
Okay.
I don't know who else is actually listening. Dave is still here. Hi, Dave. And I doubt KV Zero is still with us. I suspect he just and Scott, I think was listening. But
Yes.
I think we've burned up here. I need to go and check in my 331, and tomorrow morning I hope I can check one thing and I can go into a different mode of work. So, okay, take care, everyone.
All right, I'm gonna bail out.
I'm gonna bail out.
All right, I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.